Son closed last year because one kid coughed completely stupid. She could not work for two. Yeah, yeah. And that's another thing that I have to believe. It almost seems like they're going out of their way. I don't know if it's by design or not, but they're going out of their way to make it incredibly hard to incredibly expensive, incredibly hard. It's become a headache now. If you think about the school wasn't like this whenever I was a kid. I didn't even have a phone. Whenever I get suspended, they couldn't even call my mom. What you gonna do? You can send a letter. I'm talking like 94, dog. We didn't have a fucking phone. What you gonna do? My mom's at work, dog. Send that letter. I'm gonna go ahead and grab it in the morning. We're good. My mom ain't got to know shit. You know what I mean? It was a different story, dog. Now they've got they've interjected themselves into parents' lives, demanding money, demanding obedience to vaccines. You know, you're demanding a bunch of shit. They demand a bunch of shit, right? They demanded, oh, you got to sign up. You know, you sign up for these alerts, these email alerts, and you know what I mean? They've lost control of the schools. You know, it's one of the only place many children will actually experience violence is in school. You know, yeah, that's in Florida. I believe it's by Disneyland. Where's Disneyland at? Orlando, I believe. There's a lot of them everywhere. Worst prison in Colorado besides Supermax? Probably it would be a toss up between Lyman or Sterling. They're the two facilities that are considered closed, which is right, but which is a level 4. We have a 5-tier system. I know a lot of states have a 4-tier system. We have a 5-tier system out here. There's 2 levels of camps. There's medium, closed, and Supermax. And so, yeah. See, she says it too, right here. Boom. Lyman and Sterling would be a toss up. I would say that I've been in both. This is what I would say about Lyman and Sterling. Sterling was much more political, and the tension in the air was palpable. There wasn't a whole lot of mixing as far as like chopping it up and hey, what's going on and what are you guys doing and oh hey, what's up? As far as the yard was concerned, you kind of kicked it with your people. And at that particular time, the politics dictated that my people were pretty much the Northerners. I was in the Northern Ride at that time. And so that's basically who I cohorted with for the most part. Yeah, it's Lyman was much more open. You could do whatever it is that you needed to do, talk to pretty much whoever it is you needed to talk to. Everybody kind of knew where everybody stood. There wasn't any question about that. So the tension wasn't there in Lyman. But the amount of time in Lyman was absurd. Like 70 to 80% of people had what they called life or extended sentences. And what the metric was in Lyman was that there was a lot of people in there who had made a mistake and done something dumb and offed their wife, came home and found their wife cheating. I know a couple people. There was 3 people on my tier with me at one time who had offed their wife for one reason or another, having to do with infidelity, having to do with one dude, his wife died. She was in a car and he was driving drunk. And so Lyman had a lot of that aspect. It had a lot of people. That Lyman is where I met the dude that they of terrorists that they accuse of terrorism, that they accuse of producing the books that they believe some of the rhetoric led to the 9/11 attacks. His name is Humayuddin al-Turki. I've made a couple of videos about him. I was a parapro. He's a very smart man. He was working on his doctorate, and we were both parapros in the same class in the reentry program. We were part of the reentry program in Lyman. And so, there was a lot of those type of people over there. But Lyman was much more relaxed. Lyman was pretty cool, actually. I got to say that. Whenever I first got there, it was cool until that woman got hit in her neck. The woman got hit in her neck in power sewing. I was in power sewing at the time, right? So I'm sitting there talking to the cop, right? It's not even a cop; it's an industry dude. We're power sewing dudes, right? And so I was making mittens at the time, oven mitts. That's what I was making at the time. So I'm in there sewing oven mitts, and I'm showing dude the oven mitt. I'm like, this is fucked up, and I'm talking to him about it. And he's got his like radio right here, and you hear a woman just scream at the top of her, like she's dying, right? And the dude looks at me. I remember it. He looked at me and he didn't know what was going on, and he started shaking. He had his hands because he had the mitten in front of him, and he started shaking because he didn't know if it was a riot. He didn't know, and all he knew is he was stuck with me, like in the corner with me. You know what I mean? And I've got like an 18-inch pair of shears right here. You know what I mean? And I don't know what he was thinking, but he just started shaking and he started backing up and he couldn't talk. He wouldn't speak. I was like, dude, what's going on? I didn't even realize what was going on. And so I kind of looked back. It was like a rack focus. If you're looking at something right here and then you kind of zoom out and look at stuff behind you. And I start seeing cops just run, voo, voo, voo. And you start hearing the screaming again over the thing. You can hear her screaming. And so now I'm just kind of walking around like, what the fuck is going on? You know what I mean? So I cruise over and I get me a little cup of coffee, right? No, that's what I was doing. Whenever he walked off, I was like, whatever, man. And I went and I was getting my little cup of coffee because they gave us free coffee. And then I started walking around the thing and I started walking down the hallway because I wanted to see what the fuck's going on. There's cops running all over the place. And I run and I look through the door, and there's a door that goes through the cutting room because this is where I work. This was one of the places that we would go to get our fabric, was the cutting room, right? So I looked down. As a matter of fact, what's his name was there? He's in the chat. Rob's in the chat. He remembers this. I forgot about that. You were there too. Rob used to work in power sewing with me. He can corroborate all this shit. I forgot about that. Robert Sanchez. I go look and I look through the door, and the door has a glass window. You know what I mean? And I look and I see her running. Her name was, and she comes running and she's got her arm like this, and she's running as fast as she can, but you could tell that her shirt's all ripped open, dude. And so I just kind of opened the door, you know what I mean? And I was like, well, clearly she was in a hurry, you know what I mean? I didn't see any blood though. I can't say I seen any blood or anything like that, but I opened the door and she went, took off running down the hall. And then maybe like 10 seconds later, they just started screaming, get on the floor, everybody, da, 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 da. And they rounded everybody up in that hallway, and they made everybody sit on the floor, and we sat there for hours. And then they brought this fool Skeeter out, this black fool Skeeter, who was an SO anyway. He was an SO, but he would hide with the cops. He would he worked with the cops. That's the thing. They were protecting him, the sex offender. And so he worked in the office with the cops. He didn't work out there with the rest of us. And they brought this fool out like Hannibal Lecter. They beat him bad. I know they beat him bad. I don't know if he was trying to spit on people, but they brought him out with the whole mask on his face. And you could tell they had beat him bad, and they were wheeling him out on a dolly. And then they locked us down for months. They just locked us down. Gave us like 2-3 showers a week, maybe, if we were lucky, and just slammed down. Locked down 24 hours a day in your cell for months. And then whenever they finally let us off, they let us all go to the chow hall the very first day. I can still remember it like the back of my mind, dog. We walked in the chow hall. I was like maybe the 10th person in line. We were right at the front waiting to get our food. And the cops were trying to make us sit with whoever. And the first couple people were like, whatever, on some racial shit. The cops were trying to make us sit like blacks, whites, da 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 da. And the first person who told them to fuck off was a 211 dude, this fool Zombie, who was built like me. He was a big boy. He was built like me, even kind of looked like me. It said Zombie all big on the back of his head. Homie was with the business. He already had a life sentence. And he went and sat down, and the cop went and told him something. And he was like, homie, get the fuck away from me. That's what he told him. He's like, dude, you better get the fuck away from me. And the cop pushed his gut on him. The cop was fat, and he pushed his gut on him. And Zombie stood up and just drilled that fool. Boom! And knocked him back onto the table. And then he grabbed him by his shirt and just started laying into this cop, right? Boom, boom, just letting him have it. And the other cop runs up and grabs him. And now Zombie's squabbling with both these fools. Boom, boom, boom. Eventually, they get the better of him. You know what I mean? They get him on the ground, and they get the better of him. They lock us all down. We're slammed down again for months. And then after that, it just kept going and going and going. Every time they would let us out, they let us out. And there was a Southerner got the heads with this GD fool. and the Southerner lost. And the Southerners were like, "Yep, we're not taking that loss." I'm talking like we were a month off lockdown again, and the Southerners were like, "Yep, we're not taking that loss." And then a whole race riot popped off with the whites, the Southerners, and the blacks, and everybody went to the hole. And I happened to get in a fight with a Southerner on the exact same day, so they thought I had something to do with it too. So I got wrapped up too. I got wrapped up on that whole situation and sent to Centennial. A whole van load of us got sent to Centennial. I swear to God, I had nothing to do with that riot. Like zero to do with that riot. I just got the heads up with one Southerner. That was it. It was all sanctioned and everything. Everybody was like, "Yeah, it's cool. Let him fight." You know what I mean? Let's see what the chat's doing. Nah, well, that was I don't even blame the 211s on that one. They put him in a trick bag, man. How you gonna do that to somebody at 6 a.m, man? They didn't have to do that. They put that dude in a trick bag, from what I could tell. His politics say that he can't sit down and eat with that black dude. And you're going to be like, no, you can say, oh, I know you've been programming this way in Colorado for 20 years, right? With your life sentence or whatever. But because we let some sex offender around in a privileged position, this dude had a clean ass job, dog. We had to at least do stuff. Like this fool's in the office on a computer all day. And as soon as he got a chance, he tried to take some, you know what I mean? Tried to take some action. Tried to get some action. Put the things to her neck, dog. Those shears, the same ones I was talking about. He had his own, and he put those to her neck, dog, and tried to get busy with her, you know. And luckily, she was able to fight him off. So now you want to come mess our whole program up. Now you're gonna come. I can even remember whenever we were on lockdown, those 4 months we were on lockdown. They brought all this riot gear in and then practiced it on the side of the wall inside of the courtyard of the prison so everybody could see them going in, practicing going in on people, practicing shooting people with rubber bullets and all this other shit. This is how they act. They did it to intimidate us. Clearly, they did it to intimidate us. They did it right in front of our windows. You know what I mean? You look out the window and you see cops out there practicing beating the hell out of people. Right? Centennial's old as shit. That's what it's like. It's so old that you can't. It's so old that the cracks in the windows are so big that even with your window closed, they can still, like snakes, or not snakes, like spiders and scorpions can still get in your room through the window. That's how old this shit is. And the windows are at ground level. So whenever you look out there, you look out the window, you're like looking at the ground at all this crazy shit, these brown recluse spiders. And it's like man versus wild, dog. You can hear coyotes howling all night, the wind whipping through the window. Yeah, CSP2. I never made it to CSP2. I was in CSP1 twice. As a matter of fact, that's what they did, is they took me out of Centennial almost immediately. On that same trip with all those with those white boys. And that's how I ended up leaving Lyman. Once again, I left just over a fight. It was just over a fight, but it happened at a really bad time. I literally got in a fight with a Southerner like 2 hours before a race riot. And they somehow, in their infinite prison wisdom, decided that I had something to do with the whites and the Southerners going to war with the GDs. I had to have something to do with it. So I was gone. Huerfano County? What is it? Twin County? What does Huerfano mean? Orphan. Means orphan or twins? What's it mean? I forget. Jog my memory. It's also where Walsenburg was. And I remember Walsenburg because I learned how to box in Walsenburg. And that's actually where that write-up is from. The hamburger write-up that they like to make fun of. That was in Walsenburg, Colorado, in Huerfano County. I was fucking, man. I robbed Walsenburg worse than anywhere I'd ever robbed, dog. We did that place bad. I was able to take my convict skills, you know what I mean, that I had learned in like level 4s, and I was able to apply them to cops that were making like $9.50 an hour, and they just weren't ready. You know what I mean? They put me in the wrong spot, and it was over for them. Hey, because that's what I do. You know what I mean? That's one of the things that Manuel Gamboa taught me, homie, is if you can make peace, if you can make everything peaceful, you can start. That's whenever everybody starts making money, man. Always shoot for peace between the gente, because then we can all make money together. You know what I mean? That was one of the things he preached, and he's right. And I was able to, because as soon as I stepped up there, I started learning to box. I was loving that. Within a couple months, these fools just started deferring to me. They're like, "You're in charge, homie." It was like they kept coming to me. What should we do about this? What should we do about that? This fool wants to do this. And before you know it, I was basically in charge of the situation. You put me in charge, I'm gonna put together a scheme. We're gonna start putting things together. I started putting things together with the white boys, all kinds of shit. Make it happen. That's where the whatchamacall got hit. That's where they did that burglary that I was talking about, where they went in through the roof of the school and went in through the roof of the school, the skylights of the school, and tore apart a bunch of computers and stole all of the motors out of the computers. They destroyed the whole computer lab, stole like 20 fucking tattoo motors.